Hi, my name's Dave O'Neill. I'm doing this video from Cornwall, United Kingdom. Sunday afternoon mishmash. That's what I'll call this. I'll just go on for a little bit. Starting off with something, and then I'll move on to something, and then you never know, something else might pop up. Maradona might pop up into it. So, as I say, it's Sunday afternoon. I did that video on the way to work the other morning about Afghanistan, saying how it's going to speed up. And we're going to be surprised, how it's going to speed up. But I did that a few months ago where I said this was going to happen, and I projected September, October. I projected like towards the end of September, October, start of October, and then there was going to be this quiet period while all the foreign fighters moved over to Syria. And then it was going to start off there, New Year. So, but it's come faster because it's all about getting the money out of the country. And there's been this panic, and it's like, when do you leave the battlefield? Not just this battlefield, but any battlefield. It's lost. You've got all the individuals that are involved in the battle. You've got the officers, you've got the political officers, whatever. When do you leave the battlefield? Well, it's always been about money, Afghanistan, because Afghanistan doesn't really have an economy like a capitalist economy. It's controlled by warlords, things like that. There's all these. You've got to look at it like that. It's owned by warlords in areas, or it was. Then you had the political confederation, and of these warlords, and then they gave it diplomacy. They gave it as though they had a government, and this goes back to many years ago. It's like a lot of people don't realise, but when you watch these videos, like the battles that go on there, and they go into communities, and you'll have this canal fetching the water, because Afghanistan has rivers coming out of the mountains, out of the Himalayas. I think it's the Himalayas. Yeah, it's the Himalayas, whatever. You have these mountain ranges, you've got the rivers coming out, and then you get narrow bands of green. But they build waterways off, so then you can extend your green. Well, in the 50s, America put a lot of money into Afghanistan, building these canals. It's just something they did for whatever reason. And it's part of the grand scheme of the planet. But so America was involved back in the 50s. And a lot of it was to do with, thinking about it now, is to stop the expansion of communism. So America puts money into countries in the 50s. You talk about the Cold War. You've got Korea, Vietnam. Korea's kicked off first, and it's coming into the Vietnam area. Well, America was putting money into places to show them the advantages of capitalism and democracy. So that's probably when you got your government thing. And then the Russians, the Cold War, they moved in and created the communist state. And then you got your friction with the religion, you see, because communism just doesn't go well with religion. And as they say, there was just a communist government within Kabul and some cities, large cities. But the rest was just the same. So you've got all that going on. Well, now the journey's moved on to where we are now. And I did a blog radio show before I ever started YouTube. Been doing YouTube, 12 years. But before that, I used to do blog radio. And I always remember doing this blog radio show back in 2008, 2009, where I talked about how they were negotiating. There was an office of the Taliban. Call it Al-Qaeda, Taliban, call it what you want, but it's the Taliban. There were offices of the Taliban in Dubai. Dubai, Qatar, whatever, Doha. And they were already negotiating. The Afghanistan government was negotiating with the Taliban back in 2008 in this office area. And I talked about how they weren't negotiating for peace. They were negotiating about who's going to keep the money. Are the Taliban going to come after those who've stolen the money. Well, the Taliban aren't really interested in who stole the money, but it was a delaying tactic by President Karzai and others because they were stealing the money from Afghanistan. And it's not Afghanistan's money, it's American money. It's European money. It was aid money. The longer they kept it going, the more money was poured in through the American aid system and the European aid system. And they were stealing it. Let's say they were stealing 60%. Imagine, I tell you what, no, let's go the other way. Let's say they were just stealing 40% of all the aid money. Just think how much money they've stolen. And in this blog radio, I said they're just negotiating about who's going to steal the money, who's going to be allowed to keep stealing the money or to keep the money that they've stolen. Because it's like if you steal off the mafia, somebody comes and knocks on your door eventually. All the Russian oligarchs in London, elsewhere, places, been murdered. Because Putin came after them eventually for the money that they had stolen from the Russian system. Because the way Putin sees it, and others, stolen Russian money stays in Russia. And then allows them to finance the stealing of international money. Or the financing of like Russian gangsters or whatever. So this delay has been going on since 2008. So that's what, 10, 11, 12, 13 years. They were negotiating 7 years after this. 7 years after the war, because I was talking about it in 2008, 2009 on blog radio. And I've actually talked about it in a YouTube video and I gave links. But you can search this. President Karzai's brother was stopped on a private jet flying from Kabul, so Afghanistan. He was flying from Afghanistan on a private jet to Switzerland. And he had to stop off in Dubai. Obviously, refuel, break. And they found, for some reason, they searched him, even though he's like vice president, whatever. For some reason, they took it upon themselves to search through the private plane. And they found a crate with $90 million. 86, $90 million. And you can search this story. And they asked him, why? Where's all this money come from? Where are you going? Well, I'm going to Switzerland. Well, what's in Switzerland? Well, the banks, the private banks. He didn't have a banker's note. He didn't have a note that said he's transferring $90 million. So he didn't have a piece of paper transferring the money. It wasn't done electronically. No, this was a crate with $90 million. And it was aid money because the Americans used to fly their aid money in on pallets, shrink wrapped. I think there's 6 Federal Reserves. There's not one Federal Reserve bank. There's 6 because they all print money. And instead of it coming from a central location, it's distributed around the country. So when they have to like put an influx of actual paper dollars into the system, all 6 of them are printing away. But when they invaded Afghanistan and Iraq, all the Federal Reserves were going hell and hammer and tongue at printing cash, and they were putting it straight onto pallets. It was being shrink wrapped. It was then being taken to the airport, and then it was moving to a central location to be flown to Afghanistan. Money was arriving in Afghanistan, you know, where they roll things on the rollers at the back of the plane, and there was pallets and pallets of money. Same in Iraq. Well, I'm just going to be conservative and say they stole 4 out of 10 of them pallets. And then there was other ways of stealing the money. And there was no proper accountancy system because basically the American government knew that money was worthless. When I say they knew it was worthless, they knew it had power to control people, but they knew printing pallets and pallets of paper money it's not real. It's not real money. Because eventually that's going to disappear. So when they were printing all that money all them years ago, the 6 Federal Reserves, if it's 6, it might be 9, I don't know, somebody's going to say. But when they were printing all that money, they knew that further down the line in the future, all that money would be useless. See? It'd be useless. I've told you about when the American economy collapses and they create a new economy. Oh, my nose is itching. When they create a new economy in digital, when it all goes crypto, you have a crypto dollar. And I've told you in my book, I call it the doodah. Where's my book? Where's my book? It's over there. But in my book, I said, when they create this new economy, and I called it the doodah, they will give Americans 1 for 1. So a poor American who's got $38 in his bank, he'll get 38 doodahs. But the billionaire and the trillionaire will get 1 billion doodahs or 1 trillion doodahs. So you see, the wealthy stay rich. But out beyond the borders of America, anybody who owes dollars will get maybe 1 for 10 if they're lucky. You know, America will do a deal with the world, hoping that the world will still trade with them. You see? But I don't think that's the way it's going to work. So all that paper money, right, it's worth something technically, but down the line in the future it's not worth something. So why bother stealing it? Well, you go and buy assets. You go and buy a mansion, you buy a business. You invest it paying off politicians in other countries. That's the value of money. And it's about getting assets, owning things. So with that $90 million on just that one run, this is President Karzai's brother now. He's took that money to Switzerland so it can be laundered into assets. So when you go buy an apartment in Paris, you have the wire transfer from Switzerland, $90 million, things like that. And then also that cash money can be handed over to a company and buy gold, silver. So all these things were happening with that money. In Dubai, when they built all those palm houses, you know, where they built those false islands with mansions on them, they got David Beckham to as though he's bought one. David Beckham's out there, yeah, I bought one of these houses. He says he bought one of them. They sold it him for fucking peanuts. And then he advertises it, and then he attracts all the fucking celebs. Well, a lot of Afghans were stealing money, flying it to Dubai and fucking buying these houses and other apartments in Dubai. I've told you before, Dubai is being prepared to be one of the electronic centres on the planet for when the world goes crypto. That's why they're building all them fucking super high skyscrapers. It's got like a warm climate. Where else would you want to live if you were a billionaire? And you've got like loads of stolen money. And Dubai, they facilitate money laundering, international super billionaire, trillionaire money laundering. The gold in Dubai, the gold exchanges, you know. So you've got all these things going on, and they've been going on for years. Well, it's all come to an end, but it's ended a lot faster than what people thought. And it all revolves around the Americans leaving Bagram Air Base. The Americans thought that the Afghans had doled out longer. But the Americans are like the first ones to leave the battlefield. They've gone. Well, if the general leaves, how long does it take for the one below him to hold his nerve? He's got to steal a bit. And the one below them have got to steal a bit. And then eventually, it's gone. Because the officers disappear. Well, the men aren't going to stay on the battlefield. The ordinary person and the lower officers, they're not going to stay on the battlefield. But they're going to steal as much as they can. They're going to steal a couple of vehicles. It's like the Taliban, you've seen them driving Humvees. That's because they've sold them. They've sold the Humvees to the Taliban. You think, well, how much is forget how much a Humvee is worth. The guys who sold it might have only got $200, $300. $500, it doesn't matter. Well, where the Taliban getting money? Well, they're accumulating money as they're moving in. They're taking control of banks and taking the money. They're taking the money off rich individuals. They're taxing them. Like you get drug dealers being taxed. You know, drug dealer, he's been successful. He's selling a lot of drugs. He's got a good personality. He's got a good business head. All of a sudden, there's a knock at the door. There's these fucking big meaty guys. We've come to tax you. You know? And then they go, right, taking your stash. What are you going to do about it? Because this drug dealer with a bit of a personality hasn't invested in muscle. He's not prepared to kill anybody to protect his business, but he's better start thinking about it. Well, that's what these people are doing. They're selling their Humvees, they're selling the weapons. John McCain, that dirty little murdering fucking venomous evil little fucking man, that little demon in human disguise. He pushed and pushed for Americans to get involved in Syria, and he devised this scheme where they were training these dissident groups to resist Assad. And in one scheme, they poured $500 million into training these fucking dissidents who were really Al Qaeda, Al Nusra, and a couple of others. And they flooded it with weapons. And then in a congressional hearing, $500 million went into training and weapons, and that's only a tickle on what it really was. Then at this congressional hearing, they said, how many men have you got? He went, 50. You mean 50? Where's the rest of them? They've all gone. All right, they've all gone. What do you mean, where they've gone? Well, they've gone to Al Nusra and fucking Al Qaeda and fucking whatever. And they've took the weapons with them, but they've also sold the weapons. So that's $500 million gone just in that one tickle. Well, that's what's been going on for years and years and years in Afghanistan. But now it's come to an end. It's over. And the Taliban are going to be in charge. And like I said, we're going to get the feminists. And every time when I see the news, I saw it at work yesterday, the BBC, they're going on about girls and women. Well, they're Afghan women. It's their country. It's their country. That's the end of it. This is the planet that's been created by factional forces of human beings. And that's their country that's based on an interpretation of a religion. You have Orthodox Jewish religions that are just as fanatical as the Taliban about their religion. You have Christians that are just as fanatical about how they interpret the Christian word as the Taliban. That's what religion does. So if you look at Afghanistan, basically what you're looking at is a religious enterprise. An extreme of the religious enterprise. God, my nose won't stop itching. Somebody must be talking about me. Oh no, that's the ears, isn't it? Left for love, right for spite. Anyway, so we're seeing it all. But the Americans, yeah, we're going to fly 3,000 soldiers in an orderly manner. So we're taking them in and we're going to fly them in and they'll be like, and then blah, 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 blah. Well, fucking hell, I bet it's gone even quicker than getting them in. You got Boris Johnson, we're going to send 900 paratroopers in. What a fucking clown. What a fucking clown. Biden, what a clown. Biden's Biden. You see, you're going to have to start looking at Biden in a different way, which is what I told you just after the election, just before the election. Oh, just after the election, I told you. And I said, you're going to have to look at Biden in a different way. He's there for a reason. He's there as the face of the man that the history books will say helped destroy America. That's what he's there for. And this is what you can say about Germany and Hitler. He was put in that position to be the face of the man that brought down Germany and Europe. Well, it's the same for Biden. He's the face of the man that history will record in the books as the man that helped destroy America. He's there for a purpose. And then you'll have the great resurrection as Trump comes back, as intended. And it'll be interesting to see who the vice president is. of Trump. You see, Trump's first presidency was an audition. It was an audition to see if he had what it took to go. You've got to remember that Trump is not. He's not the son of God. When I say the son of God, that's like joking. It's not really a joking matter. Trump is not the answer. Trump is just another face of evil. But evil is coming at you from another direction, like a threepenny bit. If you're stood in the middle of a threepenny bit, you know, a threepenny bit, in case people don't know, is a coin with 6 sides, is it? 8 sides. So if you're stood in the middle of a threepenny bit, the most you can look at is 3 sides. Keep your eye on. And then you've got to look at the foot, that side there, but then you're losing that side. Well, you never see what's behind you. If you're stood in the middle of like the centre of an 8-sided situation, you're never going to see the ones behind you. And the ones to the side and the front, you're switching and you constantly, well, Trump's coming at us from behind. That's what Trump is. He's a new force. It's a new force. And one of my best videos is the one I did when I was living in the park, when I was homeless, sleeping on a bench in the park. And I made this video a couple of days before 2016 election. And I said, they're taking it off Hillary. Hillary had that election because they were gifting it to her. They were gifting the election to Hillary. This is like years and years of organisation between the Clintons, the Bushes and whatever. It was her election. Just like it was Biden's election, the media, the big business and everybody had decided it was Clinton's. It was her. That was what was going to happen. And then I was homeless in the park and I said, they've took it off her. Because Trump, when Trump won the Republican Party nomination, that was an audition for evil. That was an audition for the puppet masters to see if Trump had what it took. Clinton knew she was up against another evil opponent or another face of evil. And she took it for granted. Bill Clinton, all of them, they took it for granted that it was their turn. And this was an audition by a new face of evil. I told you, the 8-sided coin. You don't see what's coming from behind. And because they got complacent for years, they were caught off step. And then days before the election, it was given to Donald. Or more so, it was taken from her. That's why she went berserk. That's why they didn't allow the electronic voting machines to be hacked. Which is what they did with George Bush, because George Bush was a tool of the puppet masters. Don't matter, Democrat, Republican, it don't matter. They used the Diabol voting machines to get George Bush in. They used the Diabol voting machines in 2000. They also used them in 2004 to get George Bush, to keep him in. Because the Afghan war was unpopular, and so was the Iraqi war. And it wasn't guaranteed he was going to win, so they used the electronic voting machines. They didn't need to do it for Obama. They didn't need to do it. Because Bush had created so much animosity, it was Democrats' turn. But then it was supposed to be Hillary's turn. But then this new face of evil turned up. The 8-sided coin, he was behind you. You never see what's coming from behind. And he made an audition in the Republican primaries, and this new force of evil shown that it was determined. So it was taken from Hillary. And then it was all decided that Trump takes time off. He goes, finds his new people, while Biden destroys the country. And that's what Trump's doing now. Because he didn't have time. This new force didn't have enough people behind Trump. But all those who know the symbolism, how the symbolism works in politics, in religion, in the military, how symbolism works on this planet, you've got the next generation of evil who they're not sure which way to go. Do they go Democrat? Do they go Republican? Do they go Trump Republican, or do they go with the other fucking old fossils? Because you've got to look at them as old fossils. Mitch McConnell and all that, Mike Pence, all that crew. Well, your next generation of wannabe fucking politician evil, they're all auditioning for Trump. So Trump makes it to the next election and he wins. But in 18 months' time, he'll be getting his audition people in power ready. And you're not just looking at senators, you're not just looking at Congress, you're looking at mayors, you're looking at governors, you're looking at attorney generals, police chiefs, even dog catchers. There is going to be a whole new movement towards Trump. Now, by the time Biden has finished destroying the country, those on the left will be too fucked. They'll be looking round at their destroyed country, destroyed economy, destroyed lives. And they'll be like that. They'll be too busy surviving to fight Trump. And this is the thing that tickles me. People are going to shout and cheer and fucking clap and applaud when Trump gets in, not knowing that they're bringing in the dictator of dictators. Because they will have the philosophy that Trump can do what needs to be done to get America back on top. Well, that's when you'll see your camps, your new prisons being built. And everyone's putting themselves on show. It's like your Antifa, your Black Lives Matter and all the others. They're all putting themselves on show. Names are being taken. And that's when your camps, people have been going on for years about FEMA camps. I think we're going to come at the period when Trump gets his second term in power. That's when we're going to see the camps. That's when we're going to see evil. But you think, oh, America. Well, it'll be the whole world. The whole world will be in fucking chaos like that. It's like your Chinese re-education centres. All you got to do is call it a re-education centre and it's not a prison. Who's to say you can't have that in America? Places where people need to go and take time out to rethink how they think. Your education system will be wrecked. Healthcare, everything. There's something else I was going to say. Right, so we've got all that going on. I'm not going to bother putting links up to what's going on in Afghanistan. All you got to do is go watch Al Jazeera. Don't bother with BBC. Go and watch Al Jazeera. If you watch Fox, all you see is hysterics. Hysterical. Blah, 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 blah. Go watch Al Jazeera. Just to keep ahead of what's going on in Kabul. And it's falling apart really, really rapid. Do you know what the fly in the ointment's going to be? I mean, they've got to get the people out of the embassies. You know what the fucking real fly in the ointment will be? 2 seconds, let me just clear some off the screen. The real fly in the ointment is going to be all the aid workers. What do they call them? The NGOs, the non-government organisations. Oxfam, feminist groups, hunger manipulation. All these NGOs, non-government organisations who governments give money to. But it means they can operate and then the government don't take responsibility for anything they do. There are thousands upon thousands of NGO workers all scattered around Afghanistan. Middle class, and I've got to say middle class. Middle class ideologies. Little Marxist, little feminist. They're all there trying to fucking make Afghanistan a model for their fucking philosophy, feminist philosophy, fucking Marxist, whatever, political democratic philosophy. Yes, look what we can do, how we can build a nation from dust and stone and rock. They're all going to be there. How the fuck did it get out of Afghanistan? Well, they're going to rely on the military and whatever and the political bodies to get them out. I've not seen them on the news yet, fucking whinging and whining and crying. I'm going to tell you what happened when Kabul fell. This must have been 1998, 1999. So they've kicked the Russians out. And then Kabul fell and the Taliban were coming into Kabul. They took Kabul, they was fighting, there was proper resistance then from the communist Afghans, the leaders of Afghanistan. There was proper resistance. And the Taliban, who were equipped by America, billions upon billions of dollars, Charlie Wilson's war, I've done the video, they poured into Afghanistan. And then they went up to the top corner. There was only 10% of Afghanistan. And then all of a sudden, George Bush launched the war. They got pushed back so quick because they had all the weapons already in Uzbekistan. The Americans had built an air base in Uzbekistan and it was all equipped and ready with tanks and everything. Jets, helicopters, a lot. Special forces. Then they poured into northeast Iraq, Afghanistan. Then they pushed the Taliban back so quickly. Then Kabul gets freed. And all the NGO workers poured into Kabul. And Oxfam were paying back in 2001. Oxfam, I always remember this figure. Oxfam were paying $10,000 a month for a villa. You see, you still had all these middle class villas. It was only the poor districts that got fucking battered in the fighting. But on the outskirts of Kabul and in good areas, there was all these like rich homes. Well, an Afghan could rent his villa for $10,000 a month to Oxfam and then go live in fucking Miami. And he's got the $10,000 a month paid into his bank and all the rest. Or he could move into a smaller fucking home somewhere else and he'd rent out his villa. So much money has been involved in the invasion of Afghanistan. And it's all gone. That's why they've all left. It's gone. The money's gone. And there's been this delay going on since I was talking about it on Blog Radio in 2008. But it's all over now. We're into the next phase. China's going to move in. And China is going to move in, not with tanks, not with guns. It's going to move in with overalls and white and helmets, builders' helmets, working man's boots. And the Afghans aren't going to do the work. It's not going to be subcontracted to this guy, that guy, the president's friend. No, they're going to build a camp with Chinese workers and there will be Taliban guards around it getting paid. And nobody fucks with them Chinese workers. And they are going to build things for the Afghans. And the Chinese will get a percentage of everything that's extracted. All the wealth that's good, the wealth that is going to be extracted from Afghanistan, Afghanistan resources, minerals, whatever. The Chinese will get a percentage and they will get the materials. And the Afghans will be paid for the materials. Now, what they do with the money, I don't know. They'll probably build Grand Mosque. I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what plans they've got. It doesn't really matter. Because Pakistan's going to fall apart. Fucking Iraq's going to erupt. Lebanon's going to kick off. All the fucking spare fighters, foreign fighters now, who are being given bribes, well, the Taliban will probably give them the money, put them on jets to Syria. Well, to Turkey, then they move across into Syria. There's going to be so much, and who's going to get the blame for all this? Biden. Which will then ensure a Trump win. And there will be no manipulated voting machines next time. There will be no manipulated voting machines, just like there wasn't with Obama. I think there was a couple in Oklahoma for Obama. But they won't need to, because nobody will be able to justify voting for the Democrat guy. And then the media will have done a complete U-turn, because that's the way it's supposed to be. What else was I going to say? I'm going to put you one link below, Dale H. Because while all this is going on in Afghanistan, all the other evil stuff's going on. Dale H made a video the other night, and I caught it. And it was like time for me to go to bed. So I sent a link to my mate in Manchester. I've only got a couple of links on Facebook, a couple of friends. And I only had Lee for so many years. And what I did was I sent him a link to Dale H's video. It's only about 2.5, 3 minutes long. What it is the head of Hillsong, the church. You know, Hillsong, that church, what people just love, trendies. Well, the head of Hill Church has been arrested for paedophile stuff. And he's the best friend of the Australian president. What's his name? Scott Morrison. Scott Morrison's there at Hill Church, singing and swaying, whatever. So he's pushed Hill Church. Hill Church has backed him up. The church is flooded with all these fucking trendy fucking people. It's also flooded with influential people, because Scott Morrison's there as well. Scott Morrison went with other world leaders to Trump's inauguration. He went to a big meal with Donald Trump. He was allowed to take one friend into the meal. So who does he take? Well, he takes the head of Hill Church. And the American administration, CIA, FBI, all that government, White House security, he said, can't fetch him in. The Prime Minister of Australia was not allowed to fetch his best friend in for a meal with Trump, where he'd obviously get a photo taken. You know how they do, as they go past and they get a quick photo and then they move on. He'd have got his picture took with Trump, which would then have enhanced Hillsong, the church in Australia and elsewhere. And you could have put any caption below that picture, used it for any type of propaganda. Well, the White House would not let this guy, what's his fucking name, Brian Houston, they wouldn't let him in to the White House. So there was an empty chair by Scott Morrison, I'd imagine. Imagine the shame of that. But when he got back to Australia, he still supported his shit. Well, it's all kicked off now. He's been arrested. Paedophile, sex with children, selling children, VIP, selling children to VIP paedophiles. It's all kicking off in Australia, so you don't see much about it. I've only seen, well, in the last few days, all I've seen is Dale H, and I wasn't aware of it till Dale H did this little video. So I'm going to put you a link to Dale H's couple of minute video on YouTube, but he obviously can't talk about it because he'll be taken down. But I'm going to put you a link to his full Bitchute, the full video where he's talking about what's gone on, the depth of it, the depth of the evil. So when you look at Biden and all that, it's just a game. Don't get worked up about it. Don't get worked up about Afghanistan. Oh, why did our soldiers die? We did. What about the children who've been abused for years? Fucking the Afghans. I'll talk about it one day. I'll talk about lots of things. But all these wars create people on the move. While people are on the move, children go missing. That's one of the profits of war. It's one of the profit-making things of war. The displaced children that disappear. Poverty in America. A child in impoverished situations disappears. It's all the same. Something's just happened with my computer. Anyway, so watch Dale's video. Watch the full video. Forget the Afghan stuff. It's interesting. But that's it. It's just interesting. But it's also interesting that I was in front of everybody. Which it doesn't mean fucking I'm the oracle of all knowledge. But it shows that it's possible to be ahead of the game. by developing that spiritual link. You can be ahead of the game. See, God's looking after us. Somebody made a comment to me the other day, a private comment, private connection, about how angry they are because they're coming after the children. You think God doesn't know that? You think God's not aware of that? You think God doesn't have a plan? I went over my 7 videos I did about iPet Go, and I will put a link to that, and I'll put a link to the second and third one where I talk about the children. And I was looking at it the other day, and I watched them again because of something that came up. And the evil it's happening now with our children. They're coming after our children, but that's something else not to get. You can be upset about it, but you've just got to fucking trust that God's got a plan. And a plan, humanity has to evolve. We've evolved from millions of years of evolution, and we're on our way to evolving to something in the future in millions of years, unless we kill ourselves, unless we fucking destroy the planet. But if we destroy the planet, it will be our actions that destroy the planet. We've allowed the tools of evil to manipulate the destruction of the planet. We've allowed it because we've not developed the spiritual link. Humanity used to have the spiritual link, but with more knowledge that's come into our head, we've let the spiritual link go. So there's no harm in having knowledge of how electronics work, how to make a sofa, all this knowledge, what you class as book knowledge, science knowledge, philosophy knowledge, and whatever knowledge. There's no harm in having that as long as you keep spiritual link. But let it go. But it's like I've said before, if this planet destroys itself, the universe won't even know, won't even care. We're nothing. As I've said many times, this planet and humanity is the equivalent of an ant alone on the moon.